Tony Khan is spending big money to retain his top stars in AEW. The real question is, 1, was WWE aware of it? 2, if WWE was aware of it, did they make any offers? And number 3, what does the future remain for these stars in AEW? Because these contracts are reportedly large amounts of money, which means Tony Khan is very serious about AEW and its future, which I think we've all known that for a while, but the good news is he really means it. The proof is on the weekly television show. The proof is within the contracts and the mission that he set out for AEW. On top of that, we know that Jim Ross is taking time away from AEW. Maybe your favorite YouTube wrestling channels have already talked to you about this, but I think we need to really offer some insight on what AEW should do in the absence of Jim Ross, because that is going to be very important. And then also we have some news on GCW as well. Okay, guys, so we're going to start things off with Jim Ross. By now, you've heard the news, right? We've talked about this before. Jim Ross is taking time off away from AEW Dynamite due to radiation treatment for his skin cancer diagnosis. Now, Jim Ross and Tony Khan revealed that they have a plan in place. Jim Ross should be hopefully set to return by the end of December, which is great news because it doesn't look like it's that much time off. But also, on top of that, the real question here is, what is AEW going to do in his place? Now, there have been no announcements made. Once there is, I'll be happy to share it with you guys. But I really want to talk about the idea of AEW doing a two-man commentary booth. It's something that I've really wanted WWE to get back to, and then they do that on SmackDown, but then, of course, on Raw, it's a three-man booth. I think two-man booths allow for the commentators to really focus on telling the story inside the ring. And I think Jim Ross is a fantastic talent. But right now with Excalibur and Tony Schiavone, I feel like this would be a good idea or a good opportunity for AEW to change things up right now. With Jim Ross being gone, I think this would be a good idea to maybe experiment with a permanent two-man booth and switching it up here and there. I know AEW has been, they took Mark Henry off of the Rampage commentary team. I know they have Big Show on Dark Elevation, and they make changes here and there every so often. Then you got guys like CM Punk and Ricky Starks filling in. I would love to see AEW do something completely different. I know Taz is leading the Team Taz group. Personally, I think Taz and Schiavone would be great for the commentary team. But we already have Schiavone doing in-ring interviews. You got Mark Henry doing the backstage stuff for Rampage. I would try to do something completely out of left field here and see what works in the meantime. Then when Jim Ross comes back, I think Jim Ross should always be used for special events and pay-per-views, because I think Jim Ross is a fantastic commentator. Despite the blunders, despite accidentally saying WWE on TV, that's the type of shit that people want to make a big deal, but it's not a big deal. So Jim Ross being gone could be a really good opportunity for AEW in the sense of trying things differently. But also, it could be a really good thing for Jim Ross when he comes back, because I think Jim Ross makes the product special. And when he does come back, I think Jim Ross is going to be... Honestly, I think Jim Ross is probably going to be at his best. And this guy, he knows what he's doing. So, as we have mentioned before, all of the, best wishes and best luck to him as he goes through treatment. I can't wait till Jim Ross comes back. I would love to see, AEW make these events feel bigger and better. And when you have a legend like Jim Ross come back, I think that's going to be very special. So let me know what you guys think about that story. Now we got to talk a little bit about GCW. So if you guys don't watch GCW, it is the largest independent wrestling organization right now. And honestly, on top of that, they are gaining traction very quickly. I have been very, very, very keen on mentioning this quite often. GCW is literally taking over the indie world. But on top of that, GCW, what really appeals for fans is the fact that GCW is bringing in big names that used to be on the indies that are now in North American television, such as AEW or Impact. And these people are showing up on their product. And on top of that, they're having great shows. Now, GCW is headed to the Hammerstien Ballroom, and Eddie Kingston has been confirmed. Now, obviously, with GCW being a smaller company, I don't know how it works when an AEW talent goes to GCW. I don't know if that's being paid out by Brett Lauderdale, the guy who owns GCW, or if maybe Tony Khan is helping out. But of course, we've seen Moxley, and now we're seeing Kingston. This is a great opportunity for wrestling in general. And on top of that, Eddie Kingston is incredible. And I think Eddie Kingston's last time he was on GCW was 2019. So it's been a year or two, a year and a half roughly. Guys, this is really cool. I just really want people to understand that GCW is going to grow as more people tune in and more people engage with it. If you guys haven't watched it, I understand it's not for everybody, but at the end of the day, GCW is making waves, and I have been talking about this for a while. I really, really, really want them to get a TV deal. They're doing a lot of their pay-per-view events live on Fight TV, and while that's cool, I think they have something very special going on right now, and it's very clear in the numbers. All right, guys, so AEW has re-signed the Young Bucks to a very large contract. Now, while we don't know the exact figures, it is being expected that it is very, very expensive. But on top of that, Young Bucks have re-signed with AEW as EVPs and as talent. They will be with the company for the next 5 years, which tells us Tony Khan is doing something different than he did before, because originally, when talent were signed to AEW, they were signed to 3-year contracts. Some talent were signed to per appearance deals, obviously due to the pandemic, and he was bringing in indie talents and stuff like that. But the Young Bucks are getting big contracts. This was first reported by Meltzer. But I also really want to point something out, and I think this would be a perfect idea for wrestling to really just change here, okay? Like, this idea right here, I think is important for wrestling. Look at pro sports, NBA, NFL, NHL. Their contracts are disclosed. WWE, AEW, it's not. And AEW originally came out and said they were going to be a sport. I want AEW as a sport to start revealing the contracts. Now, I get it. This is a show that is written, it's scripted. And it could be difficult for some guy who comes in to, say, hey, I have been signed to a contract for $100,000 a year, as an example. And then you got another guy who comes in and he gets signed for $10 million because he's the LeBron James of AEW. I don't know. My point that I'm making is AEW said they were a sport. And I think what can really appeal to fans in the mainstream world is if AEW presents itself as a sport in terms of contracts and news and things of that nature. See, the problem is when you look at pro sports, basketball on TNT, they got their own little show with analysts, and you got, Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal and Ernie Johnson, and you got these people, Kenny Smith, right? They are analyzing the sport. They do it halftime, they do it post-show, pre-show. Like, there's a lot that is involved with it. And I think this could be a very big thing for AEW if they were to take that approach. And the good thing is they are already with TNT to make this happen. So the Young Bucks are getting paid. The Young Bucks are sticking around. What about WWE? Were they aware of this? Were they interested in them? Because everybody thinks that there's going to be some sort of bidding war between WWE and AEW. But truth be told, I don't know if WWE is interested. And I don't know what kind of money WWE would throw at the Young Bucks, but to me, that's the real thing that I want to know about. But if AEW was truly treated as a sport, and imagine this. Imagine AEW has a show on TNT, post-show, and they're talking about contract news. They're talking about injury reports. They're talking about creative decisions. Give it that sense of realism. I think that's where AEW flourishes. For WWE, it's too late. But AEW, the way it presents itself, I think it's a massive idea. I think it's an idea that's going to be really, really successful. So it's something I want to see. If you guys want more pro wrestling news, go ahead and click on the 2 videos on the screen, whichever one you might want to watch. I'm constantly bringing you the latest news and rumors on this channel, so don't forget to check it out. My name is Zango. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.